Good. Easy.
Hey, Jordan.
Hello.
Hey.
Oh, good. We got some people coming in.
Hey, guys. You're going to get to see how completely efficient Jordan and I are with like Instagram technology.
We're really good.
You're rooting for us. Thank you. Thank
Thank you.
you. All right. Well, we are, I guess, we actually haven't had a chance to have a good old chat, have we, Jordan?
No,
since this show.
No, I feel like we've had a lot of people, reach out with some questions, whether that's episode 1 or 2, or just general questions about what a show like this kind of entitles, and meeting each other for the first time. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so
That's,
I'm gonna jump in on there because one of the questions that I've had, and actually, guys, I just want to say, in fact, before we kind of launch in, I'm Zoe. Hello to all those people that I don't know. There's Jordan above me, and if you have any questions, like this is going to be a super informal chat. Just throw those questions out there, and we're going to do our best to answer them. Okay. What was the hardest part of the show?
I'll try to moderate for us.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So I will come to that question, what's the hardest part of the show, in a second. So just ask us anything you like. We're going to try and answer as much as possible. And, like, if this is interesting to you, then this is something that we can try and do more of, right? Because there's still some shows to go. So one of the questions that we were asked was, did Jordan and I know each other before the show? And how did we get cast on the show? That was a question that I got from the UK, actually. And the answer to that is no, we absolutely did not know. And in fact, when I was approached and requested to audition for this show, and I did a couple of Zoom interviews, recorded Zoom chats. I kind of sent in some photos of my work and resume, and then they actually had a day audition process in Los Angeles where they had shortlisted a bunch of people and they flew us to LA for the day. And we had this crazy sort of MasterChef experience where we had to create dishes that we hadn't seen, and we had to create a cake and all the rest of it. And it was only that audition process that I learned that we would be teamed with someone else. Is that when you found out, Jordan?
Yeah, because so it was actually 2 days. So there was actually 2 different groups, and me and Zoe weren't even in the same group.
I'm going to just say hi. I'm saying hi to Chris and
hey, Chris.
To Jess.
So yeah, we weren't even in the same group, so I didn't even know Zoe existed at all. Even during that process, I found out obviously that we were going to be paired if you were picked. It was a little easier for me. I didn't fly out. I just drove because I live in Santa Barbara, so it was an easy drive for me. But yeah, I've never been on a show. So a little bit of, I've been on a couple shows. I've never been on a show where I had to audition. So that was a little nerve-wracking. And to Zoe's point, I think that was pretty intense just to start with. I mean, we were in ICE. So the culinary, one of the culinary schools in LA. We were just in a normal kitchen, and we had to build either, I was a pastry chef, so I had to build like a showpiece. I'm assuming, I know Zoe had to build a cake. We had to do it in a kitchen we've never been in. So there was a couple twists too during that time. But overall, that experience, even just auditioning, was really intimidating. I mean, I know on my day, I was around a lot of very talented people that made it on the show, like Miko and Chris.
And I had Juan and Elizabeth on the day that I came. And I just want to say, actually, so obviously those of you that don't know me, I'm British. I've not been long in the States. We don't have the quantity of these baking shows that you guys have in the States. So I haven't had the opportunity to participate in something like this before. So this was quite a new experience for me to be a part of it. I definitely came away from that audition process, and I'm sure I can just say, hey Elizabeth, I can see that she's joined, and I think Ashley's joined as
Yeah.
well. Oh, so nice, everyone's in. Hi guys. I'm sure you probably felt the same, that I came away, to Jordan's point, it was such a rigorous audition. We knew it was going to be a big deal. We just knew it, right? We just knew it. So to get the call to say you're in was fantastic, but I still didn't know who my partner was.
Nope.
I still didn't know who my partner was. And, you know, that I think I have to say, and I'm sure the other guys would agree with this, that I think the producers did actually
Hey, Elizabeth.
team, the producers did actually team the teams up really, really well. And as you watch the show and as you watch the episodes, hopefully you'll be able to get to sort of see that dynamic. So yeah, to answer Zoe's question, I was approached to audition. I auditioned, as did Jordan, and I think, I don't know if most people got approached, or they have casting, they have PR companies that do casting on behalf of these TV companies for shows like this, and they're in charge of finding people. So if you are an aspiring cake artist or pastry chef, you know, it's good, and this is the sort of thing that you might want to do. It's good to sort of get in with them. That's how it seems to work in the States. Is that,
Yeah,
would you say that's fair, George?
even I know that there's especially on Instagram, there's a lot of posts that go out, especially if you follow Food Network, if you just follow different casting companies that post these like posters for you to apply and stuff. When I first started, the first show that I did on Spring Baking, I was approached through Facebook Messenger, which was really odd at the time. And I was like, it must be a scam. Like, this is not real. And that got me onto that show. And then I've been like approached ever since, but I know that you can apply, definitely. So I think looking out for those different types of posters is important if you want to do something like this, because it's fun. So I think we can talk about more of like I just being on this caliber of a show, moving on from the audition part of it, and then getting flown across the world to London, for me was insane. I mean, I've never done that for a specific show. And then to land and finally meet you, Zoe, in person, I think that was like a really, from my point of view, it was, I don't know what the right words are. It's weird, right? It's
now, Jordan. Watch it now. What are you gonna say?
Nothing. I never say anything bad about you. It's weird. It's weird to meet someone. I mean, I'm a personable person. I mean, we're both Hufflepuffs, so we like to talk to people. We have a kind heart. So to me, it was fun right from the get-go. It was weird because then you have to think about not only how that person is or who that person is or if you're going to connect, but then also you got to think about, okay, now we have to bake and like, how is that going to go? Like, I don't know how it was for you, Zoe, but that's kind of how I felt, especially being in this like competition setting. I mean, that's just, I think I'm just a very competitive person. But how did you feel? I think when you first met me in person, when we first met each other, how did you feel like that interaction went?
So I felt very comfortable with you from the get-go. I said that before. I felt immediately that I could be honest and straightforward, and you were always going to take that in the right way. So that was a huge part. I'm going to be completely honest with you, and in that I have no experience. The twins. We are going to get to the twins.
We'll get to the twins.
Sierra. We will get to the twins. But just wanted to say, and I don't know if my fellow cake artists would agree with me on this. I don't know. I mean, Elizabeth runs a couple of bakeries, so she might have a sort of slightly different experience. But I've never really worked in a professional kitchen, and I have never worked with professional chefs. And it was only on that first challenge where we started working that I could see Jordan in his element, and I could see what a complete crazy mess I was, because I didn't quite hit the ground running. I suddenly was aware of the gulf of what he was used to doing on a daily basis, working in a high pressured kitchen, churning out you know, churning out many covers and lots of desserts, and I'm just used to working on my own in my own way, and it suddenly hit me very hard that I was a complete unknown quantity to you. You actually, even though you may have liked me, you actually had no real clue, right, whether I was going to put it together or not. And I was very aware of that. I've never said this to you actually, but I was very aware of that in that first challenge. And I thought, oh yeah, like the guy's a proper chef. Like I've got to, you know, I've got to show him that I'm here for a reason and that I can bring something.
And you did, like, that's something that, like, I think we didn't see in the first episode, right? Like, obviously the show piece came together.
To all the pastry chefs, yes, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris, of course, yeah, Miko running around dropping cake everywhere. But this, I think it was important that it was something that we didn't, the people that were watching the show didn't necessarily see in the first episode, was in the last, like, moments, the 30 like, I think it was the last 30 minutes. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, the badger and the suitcase. I turned to Zoe and I was like, you need to, like, I don't know, you need to figure it, like, we're not going to get this done. And she said to me, no, I got this. And I said, okay, you got it. And I turned around, and 10 minutes later I turned back and the badger was there and you were working on the trunk. And I'm like, this is insane. Like, it was a positive. It was only a positive. So I was like, okay. I think that's when I knew for a fact, I was like, okay, she knows. Like, we're both in the, we're on the same wavelength. We know things need to get done, and we want that, you know, we're doing it to the best of our ability. So I think that was like a turning point in my brain. Cause you're right. I didn't know. I mean, we were kind of, it was a blur. The first episode, we're just like, oh, yes. But at the end, when we had that piece finished, it was like, okay, you know what? Like, this is going to be great.
It was a blur. So, obviously we're given the challenge, and there is a little bit of prep time. I'm sure you guys kind of worked that out because we have structures that kind of need to be built and all the rest of it. But, and I'm sure that all the competitors and contestants would verify this, is that first episode when we went on to set, we were filming through the night. You probably know this already. If you don't, we were filming through the night. So we were already on a topsy-turvy body clock. Many of us were jet lagged already. We were dealing with so many unknowns. We walked into a kitchen. We didn't know where our stuff was. We didn't necessarily know how the ovens were working. We were tired. The clock had started. It was so overwhelming. And I'm not sure if you ever get any sense of that when you watch it back. But that's what everybody was going through. So when you see, hi Abby, when you see me with stuff all over my face, or Miko dropping a bit of cake on the floor or whatever, it's because we really are in the moment dealing with so many things. It's a miracle, frankly, what we all produce.
Yeah, so someone's saying, Mike, he says, was bummed you guys didn't get an intro video. So I think this is a good time to talk about our intro video, Zoe. I think we could talk about that experience. I'll tell you guys, this is a fun little behind the scenes. So we all have these vignettes, or vignettes, I don't know how you say it, to be honest. But me and Zoe were transported. I don't know. What time do you think that was in the morning, Zoe? 2,
like
1?
2, 3 in the morning.
Hey, Miko. Hi,
Adam.
We go to a beautiful hotel in London, and I'm asked to go swimming in the spa pool. So you guys, you didn't miss much. Let's just say that. It was me diving into a pool, and my letter showed up on my towel. So that was like that was my video, my intro video that you missed. But it was a fun time, and I tell you what, I think I'll remember that forever, because it was, I don't know, I swam like 10 laps at like 2 a.m. I was not ready to do that. He was
also, I'm sorry, Jordan, but I'm going to share this. He was also like, I'm a serious chef, and I've got to be walking around in my bathers. Is this right? Is this right? It was so funny. And after all that stress, Jordan, they never even showed it.
I didn't even need to stress at all.
They didn't even show it. But I want to ask you a couple of questions that have come up, because I want people to know that we're listening and we're seeing the questions, and we are, you know, there's just so much to kind of talk about. But Let's talk about Phelps Twins, because I know that a lot of people are like huge fans of those. I did not appreciate, boys and girls, how like how much love there is for James and Oliver Phelps out in the world. Wow, what a lot of love.
Mhm.
Um, they were, and I know that all the guys will attest to this, they were the most down to earth, friendliest people that we could have hoped to have worked with. And actually, what was really interesting was the first time that we met them, as we came through the flu and we met them for the first time, we hadn't seen them up to that point. It was very obvious to me that they were nervous too.
Mhm.
Did you find that, Jordan? That they, like, we were nervous meeting them, but I felt that it was such an enormous show, quite a big platform for them. Obviously, they've done lots and lots of stuff, but they've not done anything like this before. And I got a sense that they were just as nervous and excited as we were. Would you
No,
agree with that?
actually, they were open about that. So like even on the first episode, we were standing in the back of platform 9 3/4 ready to get judged. And I just, they were standing there and I'm looking at them, just asking questions. And they were super down to earth, just like you said. They're answering questions about, how it was when they first started the series and, what they've been doing and what their likes and dislikes are. But they're also talking about like, this is like the first, baking show that they've ever done. So to not only be in a huge kitchen around pastry chefs and cake artists that are really amazing at what they do, they were like learning with us, right? Like it was fun when they came over to our table and they asked about what we were doing, because when I said, hey, this is what I'm doing and this is why, or when you were like, hey, I'm sculpting it this way, or this is what I'm making and this is why, they were really interested in it. And they were grateful to even just talk to us, I think, which was really cool because it took away the stardom, it took away like
Yes.
our show.
Yeah,
Oh
it
my
did.
God, because I think when we came out of the flume, I said something like, I said like wicked or some, I literally
Yeah,
like words that,
you lost
yeah,
your cool, Jordan. I have to tell you, my friend.
but them having genuine conversations, I think that helped like really just relax us maybe a little bit when they did come over to the
It
tables.
did.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. They
So
were they were really great. And actually we were when we weren't filming, we all ate together, we all hung out backstage together, and there was no sort of us and them really. We were very much all in it together. So I think that was a really fun experience for all of us, to and to sort of get to ask them. Like I remember having a really long conversation with James about how he feels about the whole Harry Potter universe now, and where does it live in his mind after all these years, and how does he view it? There's so many people so invested in the brand and worship, but these guys were actually a part of it. Um, and so to have to get to ask him that, and he was completely, he was really happy to share his answer. And he said to me that it lives in his head a bit like school or university does. It was a point in time for them, but they have very, very fond memories. And actually, when the other guys came back, when Ivana came back, and you could see those childhood friendships reigniting, right?
mhm,
Which was really nice to watch.
mhm. I think so after episode 1, I think after that day, we started to figure out like really what the days were going to look like. And I think moving on, and I don't know if you have any questions, Zoe, from people about episode 2, that was truly, and if people are following this, like that was truly the longest day and the longest like mentally, that was like the most straining, I think, episode of like in the beginning. I mean, we went from like 1 and we were doing what we were doing, and then we went to 2, and it was a very long day. If anybody's been to the Warner Brothers tour, I mean, Gringotts is literally like the farthest set. So to unload pieces and transport them, it was insane. I don't know if you have any questions, Zoe, I don't know if anybody's asked questions about episode 2 at all, but that was a very tough one for me and Zoe, honestly, and I think we both can say that. That one, pushed us to our to the limit, I think.
Yeah, I would. So we were up against Juan and Elizabeth in that challenge, and I have to say, I think Elizabeth is on the live. I don't know if she's still on the live, but you know, I have to say those guys. I mean, they brought it, all the challenges, but they really brought it. They absolutely probably delivered their best piece that they did, and there was just something very, like, if it was going to go that way, I think for Jordan and I, it was a very difficult piece for us. It was very minimalist. So there wasn't a lot of detail, but what we did have to do, it kind of looked like, when I watched back, it looked like we weren't doing anything. But I promise you, we were working really hard, flat out for kind of 6 hours. That was a very, very stressful episode. And I think lots of us, I don't know how Juan and Elizabeth felt, but I know that Miko and Chris and Lisa and Mitzi, and I know Ricardo felt the same, that we were tired. I think we were shell shocked. We had gone through that whole process. And just quickly, just to go back to episode 1, we didn't know that 3 teams were going to get eliminated, by the way. We started as 9 teams. We didn't really know the format of the show. We weren't told as competitors. So it was a real shock to us when 3 teams left. A huge shock. And then before we knew it, boom, we were thrown into challenge 2. Still on this topsy-turvy schedule, still without a lot of sleep. And so all of those factors combined, and which you don't see on camera, is the kitchen was very, very, very hot. If you know anything about working with chocolate or working with sugar or butter or things like this, you know that hot kitchens are just not your friend. Jordan, you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. So episode 2, right? I chose to work with all the sugar, I guess. I've never worked with sugar for a very long time. Yeah, I mean, it affected a lot.
Hey, Mitzi.
It affected how things set, especially all the beads I was doing for the chandelier. I mean, there was a time where, I don't know how many, but a good amount of the beads melted because of how hot.
They literally melted.
I had to recast these things. And I don't know if you guys realize, but these molds, you know, that mold that I was using was a dog treat mold that I cut and put fishing line in and decided this is how I'm going to make beads for a chandelier. Like, it was not, like, this is so conceptually easy. I think in our brains, it was like, yeah, we could do this. It's minimalistic. Like, let's focus on this and this and make sure that we can do these. I mean, the chandelier was, I don't know how to, I don't even know.
Crazy.
It was enjoyable, but I don't want to do it again. Let's just say that.
I have to say, to Jordan's credit, there were a couple of times where I threw out an idea. Like, do you think we could make an edible chandelier? I think maybe was one of them. Yeah. And to his credit, he always took it on, right? And in fact, sorry, Jordan, go.
I said I wanted to figure it out. I think the ideas were fun and they were perfectly meant for this type of show, and I wanted to figure out, you know, we wanted to go big, right, or go home. So
we did. And I think I do wish, but we've only seen sort of 2 episodes, but you know, I know certainly, you know, like Ashley and Kimberly's piece for challenge 2, for example, you didn't get to see all of the pieces. You know, all of the teams, when we looked at the brief and the challenge and what can we do in the time, all of us told quite detailed stories. It was really important to us that we put in as much detail that told as much of the sort of the Harry Potter story that we'd chosen to tell. And unfortunately, just because of editing restrictions, because they've only got an hour, things get cut, and so you don't always get to see, you know, all of the detail. It'll be interesting as the challenges move on whether you'll get to see, you know, a little bit more. Nicholas is asking which team is the most competitive.
I was just looking. I think that's a hard question. I think we're all competitive. We're on a competitive baking show because we're all competitive and want to win. So I think as groups, everybody was competitive. You had to be. I mean, yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's my answer. I'm sticking with it.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not,
I agree. I don't think there was kind of one team necessarily more
no.
competitive than the other. We were all there. But what I will say, right, and I have done other baking shows, not many. I know something like Jordan's done lots, and other people have done lots and lots that have more experience than I do.
Mm-hmm.
But what I will say is, from very early on, I think we all realised this was quite a special show, and that it was going to be very difficult, very demanding. We were working through the night, not much sleep. The pace of it was was quite full on, should we say? And I from the get-go, I felt there was a camaraderie. I don't know if the other guys that are on the show that are watching this live would agree with that. I hope that they would. But I felt that even though we were obviously competitive with each other, we were all very much in it together. You
Yeah,
know?
no, absolutely. I think because we went through those long nights together. I mean, we were, especially in episode 2, like we all had to kind of just hunker down and go with the flow. And someone says hello from Japan. That's awesome. Thank you for joining.
Oh, that's my friend Rachel.
It's
Hi, Rachel. She
uh,
hasn't, yeah. So for the UK people, the UK, the show is not coming out in the UK until the 17th of December, which is really annoying, frankly. Really annoying. But you're just gonna have to just, you know, hang on. It'll be there. It'll be there really quickly. Someone was asking how hard was it to cook in different
so
kitchens?
I can answer that. So I think when we first came out of the flume and we looked at the kitchen, number one, it's probably the biggest kitchen I've ever seen on any show that I've ever been on. I don't know if you guys are watching or following along with all the PR and the things that Food Network are posting, but the twins go through the kitchens. They went through and showed you guys everything. It was insane. I mean, the tables were huge. I feel like I had so much space. The induction burners were amazing. The ovens were amazing. They had freezers. They had blast freezers. They had the chocolate tempering machines. I mean, they had everything that you could think of as a pastry chef. But it's always hard. I mean, I think the first episode was that's your first time in the kitchen, figuring out the ovens, figuring out how these things work, and just organizing yourself that way. But I think in the second episode, I know we were changed to a different table, but we kind of were like, we understood where things were at that moment. It got a little bit easier. And that's just being honest. But I think in general, it's always hard cooking in the kitchen, whether that's a kitchen on a cooking show or going to your friend's house to cook dinner. Like it's always difficult to do that.
I just never knew where my stuff was. And that was and when you're on the clock, every minute counts. So to lose a few minutes because you're trying to find a certain mold or you're trying to find something, that was very frustrating. But on the whole, the kitchen was great. It was, like Jordan said, big space and huge work surfaces.
Yeah.
Huge work surfaces, which we managed to fill. Hey, Miko, I don't know if Miko's on this, but him and Elizabeth, all us cake people, we managed to fill that space. So yeah, it was
my little corner.
You did have a little corner. I had quite a few questions that came in earlier about and it kind of comes up all the time with these baking shows. What happens to the cakes? What happens to the food?
Miko.
What happens to the cakes at this show? So I'm going to be really honest and say something. Making a TV show around food, there is inevitably some waste. However, what I will also say is that on a production this big, there's a lot of crew, and all of the cakes, once they were finished with judging, would get cut up and divided and eaten amongst the crew. So we were always mindful of that, and we always, as chefs, were trying to feed our cakes to the crew, and in the most part, they they did get eaten. So you'll be pleased to know that. In fact, whilst we were filming, it was Chef Joseph's birthday on one of the days, and I think he got bits of people's leftover
just
cake.
big pile of all the cakes. Like, happy birthday.
Yeah.
It was on that shoot. It was on that.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was on the second episode. That was his birthday. Like the full shoot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it does get eaten, but I guess it's the nature of the beast, right? Yeah. It's the nature of the beast. But we are mindful, and we do try very much to make sure it all gets eaten, really.
What are the questions that we got, Zoe?
What was the hardest? So I had two questions. What was the hardest cake, and what was our most favorite? But I don't know if we can answer these questions fully, because we've only seen 2 episodes, guys, and we are through to challenge 3. But I'm not saying it anymore. So how do you answer that?
Those are 2 hard questions. I mean, maybe out of the 2 we can talk about. Yeah, I don't know. I think the first episode, the piece that we put together, again, a little bit of behind the scenes too. We created, you guys saw during the episode, a floating letter. We created a letter that explained kind of our journey and what we wanted to accomplish during our journey through whatever the process was, whether it was the first episode, whether it was 2, and now it's going to be 3. We wanted to start our story. And I think that was around obviously being Hufflepuffs, which is great, but also around, what Harry Potter meant to us individually. That brought us together, right? The magic and the storytelling, the friendships, and all that stuff. So I think the first piece ultimately became it was an epitome of like what we felt our love for Harry Potter was. And obviously Hufflepuff was a big part of that. But also we were able to show, very different techniques that ended up gelling together to form this one, beautiful piece. I like the first one. Is my favorite.
Yeah, I from the 2 that we've seen so far, definitely, I think I would agree with you. We had this whole letter. It was an instruction to the judges. They had to read the letter, they had to pick up the edible ones, and they had to say a spell, and then that's when the letters, sort of like the emulating the letters out of the envelope, which obviously all of that was cut. A bit like Ashley and Kim's. Ashley made a beautiful chocolate sword. I was going to mention it earlier for the challenge 2 cake, and it got cut, and not for any other reason, I think, other than time.
Yeah.
I used to work in TV. I know these things can be really kind of quite brutal. So we have to try really hard to not take it personally. But it's tough, when you work on these designs and these concepts, and you come with the weight, the responsibility of something as major as Harry Potter, you bring as much as you can to it, right? And, I'm sure the others will attest to this too. You bring as much as you can, and so when you don't get the opportunity to show the viewing audience all of it, or the viewing audience doesn't get to see all of the process, I've definitely had some comments from people saying I wish that we could see a little bit more. It's just not possible, because you'd end up basically with a 6-hour show each episode, right? And I don't think we're never gonna pay for that. So that's just kind of the nature of it. But hopefully, which is kind of why we wanted to do these lives as well, just so that we can kind of fill you in, a little bit more. But hopefully you will definitely, from what you are seeing, just seeing the absolute breadth of imagination and talent amongst. We started off obviously with 18 of us, and it just the love of what people do as chefs and as bakers and as artists, and as cake makers. We are all really feel very, very lucky that we're able to showcase what we do on a platform like this, for a brand like this. So irrespective of how we've all done in the show, you know, I would say that, you know, it's a very special, it's a very sort of special occasion. So
I got two questions, Zoe.
sorry.
I got two questions for you. One, someone's asking, I'm asking you this directly. Did you reread the books before competing?
No, but I did sit down and watch every single film back to back twice.
Because I'll be honest, I've never read the books. I'm not a reader. My wife read all the books. But yeah, I didn't.
She read them for you? She read the orange.
She read it. And then the second question is, because I know that you mentioned that you wanted to ask me a question about the whiskey, and if anybody saw my face.
Yeah, Jordan, seriously, like, you did know I was making a whiskey cake. I was giving you a shot of whiskey. You made me paranoid the entire time that it was just going to be disgusting, that cake, after that reaction. Just FYI, I'm just sharing that.
So,
you know, being honest.
I can't. The taste of whiskey, the smell of whiskey, I can't do. Of course I was going to taste it. You got to taste. You got to help. I'm sorry I made that face. That was not I couldn't control it. Okay? That's just the way my face came off. But I thought it was hilarious because that moment was, I remember you cracking up because I can only imagine what was going on through your head. It was like, oh, shoot. Like, did I put too much whiskey? Or is this, like, not the right stuff?
All of that was going through my head. But when you have a camera in your face, yeah, and the clock is ticking, you've just got to kind of roll with it. And that's what I'm really interested to know if anyone else, any of the other kind of competitors feel this, but that's why sometimes, you know, in that the judging can be really scary. Yeah. Because you're running through this stuff so quickly that you're not necessarily always doing the checks and balances that you might, right? Or just, I don't know, things go wrong, or you're just not working under normal conditions, shall we say. So I always found the judging, to me, you know, like, I know the cakes are good, the recipes that I've worked with, and, you know, I'm kind of confident in my baking, but you don't actually really know, do you? Until they put the fork in.
Exactly, especially when you're rushing around the kitchen and you're trying to build a chandelier and then also make chocolate galleons, and however long I made those, I don't even know. That was like a blur too.
That literally was that was fun. That was the quickest thing.
I was like, oh shoot, I gotta do my tasting. Okay, tasting done. Back to chandelier making.
Back to the beads.
But that just goes to show you that judging. I mean, it's really, you're right. It's intimidating because they know it. They know without knowing. They know, Joseph said, like, you know, I know it was rushed. Like, he knew, because he's a great pastry chef. You know, these judges are great. Carla was great. So you're right. You know, I think I've worked with these flavors. I know these flavors are great, but, you know, there's always a but. Is it good enough? Is it not good enough? And it's especially on these baking shows, like, the structure is one thing. Making it beautiful is one thing, but making everything taste good on top of that is another layer of competition. So it's important that the things taste good.
It is, but it's really tricky to execute with all of these things going on. And, you know, we don't always get the right to reply. We don't always get to say the oven wasn't working properly, or this happened, which is why the cake was denser than it would be normally, or, you know, whatever it is. It sounds like we're making excuses. We're not, but it's just to give you a very honest look at how it is from our point of view. And I tell you, there is nothing worse as a chef, nothing worse when you haven't executed something to the way that you know that you can do it and as it should be, because you've had to make decisions, or you're juggling with 10 billion different things, or whatever the reason is in that particular moment. It's a killer.
Yeah.
Just like it's a killer when you can't execute a piece as beautifully as you would like to, because you just don't have the luxury of time. So that, like on an artistic, and I'm sure like Elizabeth and Nico and like even I'm sure all of you would kind of agree that that's the challenge of these shows, that you don't, you know, I often wish that we had more time to properly showcase what we can do properly, rather than in a sort of, you know, timed situation. But then it wouldn't be so dramatic. It wouldn't be so much fun. We wouldn't have Nico dropping his cake on the floor. We wouldn't have me with cake all over my face. You know, so
yellow food coloring or whatever coloring it was.
I know, right? 2 for 2 now. I've had food coloring all over my face. So if ever I work with Jordan again, I'm gonna have to remember that this guy just doesn't. He's not a gentleman about this stuff. He doesn't tell me.
No, I couldn't tell. How am I supposed to tell? I wasn't looking directly in your eyes the whole time. I was over there in chandelier like.
You were busy. Yeah, you were busy. Does anyone else have any questions? I feel like we've probably kind of covered quite a lot. Let's have a look.
Any other maybe a little behind the scenes things that we can speak to? I don't really necessarily think so. I think in general, as you guys may or may not know, these shows come with an amazing culinary team. The culinary team was huge, detailed oriented. They thought of everything for us, to help us transport things, to equipment, to basic ingredients, having literally endless amounts of things.
It's a huge operation.
Huge. I mean, just like anywhere, honestly, you know, working in a hotel, the heart of the house, they do a lot. Oh, we just got a couple more questions. What was it like having 6 hours to create by the 1 to 3 hours normally in other competition shows? Oh, so I mean, yeah, it's that's hard. You know, 6 hours, it seems like, you know, so much more time than 1 to 3, but that also means we have to do a bunch of other stuff. I mean, we're making 3-foot tall sculptures. So we have to be realistic with ourselves of like what we can do in 6 hours. Because I think thinking that you can do a lot is where you get into trouble. So knowing that, I think, especially in the first 2 episodes, me and Zoe really focused on what we wanted to do and how we wanted to accomplish that. And we were able to pivot in the moments we needed to pivot, but also we're able to create something that we both wanted to create, whether that was to the perfection and we wanted it or not. It was at least something we both wanted to do, and we worked our hardest, you know, to get there. I love watching each show.
But it's not a lot of time. It's not a lot of time, even with 2 of you, because also, you know, on some of these shows you can prep a little bit of stuff in advance, you know. Not on this show. Like everything was done from scratch there, kind of in the time. So you do have to be a little bit strategic about, you know, the recipes that you use, and like Jordan said, how you kind of put the design together so that you're maxing out as much as you can, but you're also not creating the ridiculous rod for your own back that you're never going to be able to finish the thing, you know? It's just not enough time is the basic short answer.
It's never enough time. I wish we had 3 days to do all these things. To piggyback on the culinary thing, someone said, I heard the story of how you had to carry the chandelier. I don't know how you heard that story. That's a good story. So again, the culinary team, they created this process where we were able to transport these pieces in vans so that we can get them to the sets. And the chandelier was a nightmare to begin with, just because it was hard to work with. But when we had to transport that, I immediately said, we're not putting it in the van. And I think I remember you looking at me like, what are you going to do? Like, how are we going to do this? And I literally picked up the chandelier, I held it, and I walked it all the way to Gringotts,
with his scariest, most serious face on, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this man. You wouldn't believe he has a scary, serious face. I'm telling you, I saw the scary serious face
I was
quite
like,
a lot.
I'm using all my forearm strength. I'm walking what time that was. I don't know, 1:30, 2 a.m. It was lit, so at least I had some light. But I walked it all the way to where we needed to assemble that at Gringotts.
Agile.
I guess it was kind of insane, but we did it and it was great. Someone's asking if you were to use any kind of Harry Potter spell in the competition, what would it be and why?
Well, see, I've answered this question already, actually. I don't know if you saw it, but I said, and I stand by this, that I would like some sort of form of polyjuice, either to replicate myself in the kitchen or to replicate parts of myself so that I can multitask much more efficiently. So I think that's what I would do. Yeah.
I think I would just be able to. I want to make all the components and then make a spell where it just puts it together. What's in my mind of how I want it to look, just puts it together, and then that's it.
What you just think it and it happens.
Yeah, just think it happens. I'll make everything. I'll make sure it's all ready to go, but I just want to put it together. So, do we get any breaks during the time?
Many.
The 6 hours. Not that many. Not during the bake. The bake is tough, and it's honestly because when we talked about it, right? Like the production is so big. We're on a schedule. We're on a very tight schedule. During baking, there's not really much that you can do.
No.
Yeah, of course we eat. Of course we get food. Is it at, is it like we're working where it's like every 5th hour or whatever it is? No. Yeah. Answer that. Maybe you have a different way to answer that.
I
get breaks.
I would say we didn't really get breaks. And I would say we didn't really get breaks across the whole experience, not even just because the days were very long. And it was so weird, like your body clock is so confused because you are going to bed at 8 a.m. It's really confusing. Then you kind of get back at it at like 2 p.m. There was like a lot of waiting around, but they weren't really sort of breaks. I do remember, because it's the British summer, that we were just cold the entire time. And whilst the food on set was good, quite often by the time we got to it, it was cold.
Mm-hmm. And I never British summer, by the way. I was so confused. It was the middle of July and it was freezing cold. I was so
Mr. Santa Barbara over here, he was like, what is going on? Why can't I wear my shorts and my sunglasses? I'm like, you're in Watford in July, my friend. We don't have the LA sun, I'm afraid.
I was confused.
Yeah, so we didn't get a lot of breaks, but I mean, honestly, as you look back on it now, just the whole thing feels like quite a blur.
Yeah, you kind of went every hour by the hour, and then all of a sudden the day was done, and you went home, you went to sleep, you woke back, you woke up, and then did it all over again. And whether you got food when you were hungry or not, when you got it, ate it, and that was it. That was really it.
I lost 3 kilos over the filming of that show.
I got so skinny. It was, I lost a lot of weight. The stress, the not eating, it's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot of information to kind of hold, But I hope everyone's enjoyed watching the first 2 episodes. So Platform 9 3/4, Gringotts, and then this week the remaining teams, which Jordan and I won, which we're super thankful for, we get to go to Diagon Alley. This is going to be a fun episode to watch. It's the first time that all the teams are in the room together, seeing each other's stuff and being judged together, because that hasn't happened so far. So I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to whoever joined and the people that have been watching the whole way. I mean, again, me and Zoe wanted to do this. I thought it was important to make sure that we talked about a little fun stuff, answer some questions. We're thinking about doing this multiple times. you know, whether that's before next week's episode or after. But stay tuned. Enjoy this week's episode. It's an exciting one, and we look forward to, you know, answering any questions you have.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you again for joining. And someone asked, "Do you win?" Well, watch the next episode, and
yeah, well,
and
of course we can't answer that question. For goodness sake, do you not know what the things we've signed? You're just gonna have to watch. Is what you're gonna have to do.
All right.
But all the teams from the get-go are fantastic. All the teams that are still standing come Challenge 3, you're going to see some really cool stuff. So stay tuned, and then you'll find out who wins.
Stay tuned. Thanks again. Obviously, thank you, Zoe, for being on. It's been nice to chat with you, too, because I feel like we haven't been face-to-face in a little bit.
I know, so, right?
Nice.
It's weird.
It's weird.
It's weird. It's been nice to see you, Jordan.
All right.
Thank you guys for joining us. It's lovely. And thank you, a special big mwah thank you to all of our fellow wizards that joined us too. All right, guys. Have a good Sunday evening.
Have a good night. Enjoy your tea, Zoe.
I will. I'm back to it.
I got my
all right.
A little bit of wine left. All right, Zoe. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.